Hello friends, this video on breathing and exchange of gases part 14 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam.
Transported. Now on similar lines, let us look at the transport of carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is also transported through blood, but let us see whether hemoglobin is able to carry most of the carbon dioxide as well. Only 25% of carbon dioxide is carried by RBCs in the blood. Now this is quite different than oxygen. In case of oxygen, 97% of oxygen was carried by RBCs, but here only 25% is carried by RBCs. So who carries the rest? Around 7% is carried in the form of plasma, that is dissolved in plasma, and the remaining 70% approximately is carried in the form of bicarbonate. So in case of carbon dioxide, most of the carbon dioxide is carried in the form of bicarbonate. Now how it is carried in the form of bicarbonate, that also we will see. So let us first look at the transport of carbon dioxide by hemoglobin. Now it contributes only 25% of carbon dioxide. So it will carry, hemoglobin carries only 25% of the carbon dioxide by this method. But the concept here is basically the same. It is just that in this case, carbon dioxide will combine with hemoglobin to form carbaminohemoglobin. Like there it was forming oxyhemoglobin, here it will form carbaminohemoglobin. Now in a very similar way here, what are the factors that affect the formation of carbaminohemoglobin? So here when the partial pressure of carbon dioxide should be high, because now carbon dioxide has to combine with hemoglobin. So whenever partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high, it will favor the formation of carbaminohemoglobin. Partial pressure of oxygen should obviously be low. So when the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high and oxygen is low, this favors the formation of carbaminohemoglobin. And obviously in the reverse conditions, that is when the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low and when the partial pressure of oxygen is high, this will favor the dissociation of carbaminohemoglobin. So I hope you now understood how it is carried. Again, wherever the carbaminohemoglobin will be formed, it will be carried in that form, and wherever it has to be released, the carbaminohemoglobin will get dissociated to release carbon dioxide. So let us quickly look at the transport of carbon dioxide from tissues to alveoli. So it is just the opposite path as compared to oxygen. So let us see how the transport of carbon dioxide takes place. Now this will take place from the tissues to the alveoli. Now let us suppose this is the alveoli and this represents the tissues. Now in the tissues, what is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide? It is 45 and partial pressure of oxygen is 40. And in the alveoli, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 40 and the partial pressure of oxygen is 104. These are all in millimeter of mercury. So that is the unit which we are using everywhere. So even if I have missed out somewhere, it is always the same unit everywhere. So now if you look at the values of the concentration, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide and oxygen, what do you see here? Carbon dioxide is more and oxygen is less. So this will favor the formation of carbaminohemoglobin. Right? So that means here the carbon dioxide will be released into the blood and carbaminohemoglobin will be formed. So carbaminohemoglobin will be formed, and then the carbon dioxide will be carried by the blood in the form by the hemoglobin in the form of carbaminohemoglobin, and as soon as it reaches near alveoli, the conditions, that is low partial pressure of carbon dioxide and high partial pressure of oxygen, will favor the dissociation of carbaminohemoglobin. So as a result, this will get dissociated and when it gets dissociated, what will happen? CO2 will be released. So CO2 will be released into the alveoli. So that is why CO2 is that is how CO2 is transported from tissues to alveoli. So if you look at this entire process here also, you will see this deoxygenated blood you see here. So here if you see, these are the body tissues. From the body tissues, carbon dioxide will come out. Here it will be carried in the form of carbaminohemoglobin, and as soon as it reaches near the alveoli, it will get dissociated and CO2 will be released into the alveoli. So this is how transport of gases take place. Now, carbon dioxide, most of it is carried in the form of bicarbonate. So let us see how it is transported in the form of bicarbonate. Now, there is an enzyme called carbonic anhydrase which play a very important role here. Now, where is this enzyme found? So, where is this enzyme carbonic anhydrase found? Now, this enzyme is present in high concentration. So, you will actually find it in very high concentration in the RBCs, that is the red blood cells, and they are found in very low concentration in the plasma. Now, since this enzyme plays an important role, therefore, this type of transport occurs more in RBCs and less in plasma. Now, what happens is that in presence of this enzyme, carbon dioxide combines with water in presence of carbonic anhydrase to form carbonic acid, that is H2CO3, and this carbonic acid again in presence of this enzyme carbonic anhydrase, it dissociates to form bicarbonate, that is HCO3 minus plus hydrogen ions. So this bicarbonate actually helps in, it is in this form of bicarbonate that carbon dioxide is transported. Now, since a lot of carbonic anhydrase enzyme is present in the RBCs, so what happens is that a lot of carbon dioxide which is present in the red blood cells, they react with water to get converted to carbonic acid, which in turn forms bicarbonate, and in the form of bicarbonate they gets transported. Now, this reaction is a reversible reaction. That is an important point to be noted. So this is a reversible reaction. That means this can again combine together to form carbonic acid, and the carbonic acid can again dissociate to form carbon dioxide and water. So now how this process actually happens is somewhat like this. Let us suppose this is the alveoli and these are the tissues. So you have tissues here and you have the alveoli here. Now what happens in the tissues? In the tissues, the concentration of PCO2, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high. Right? Now since the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high, what happens is carbon dioxide diffuses out. So the carbon dioxide diffuses out. Now as soon as it diffuses out into the blood, this enzyme is present, carbonic anhydrase. As a result, it gets converted to bicarbonate. Now, it gets transported till the alveoli in the form of bicarbonate. Now, when it reaches near the alveoli, what happens? The partial pressure of carbon dioxide is lower in the alveoli. So, as a result, the opposite reaction start to take place, and when the opposite reaction take place, what happens? CO2 is released, and this CO2 is then released into the alveoli. So the concept, here also the entire concept of transportation is the same. Formation of something and dissociation of something. So formation of something's favorable condition is at one end, dissociation's favorable condition is at the other end, and that is how transport takes place from one end to the other end. So this is how almost 70% of carbon dioxide is transported in the form of bicarbonate. So now let us see what we concluded based on our discussion on transport of gases. It has been observed that almost every 100 milliliter of oxygenated blood deliver 5 milliliter of oxygen to tissues in the form of oxyhemoglobin. Similarly, every 100 milliliter of deoxygenated blood deliver around 4 milliliter of carbon dioxide to the alveoli. So I hope that the entire process is clear now, that how the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood is traveling throughout our body, how the exchange takes place at these two places, and how the transport takes place here and here. Right? Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.